thanks for tuning in. I am here at Haute Floral, and they are going to help answer some questions for us, tell us a little bit about your flowers, what designs to do, and what kind of services they offer. So thank you so much for talking with me today. How long have you been in business?
I started the company 15 years ago. It was January 2005, so we're pushing 16 years now.
Oh my gosh, that's a long time. That's a lot of weddings, a lot of flowers.
Oh gosh, yes. Lots of experience, lots of mishaps, lots of ways to fix them, lots of pretty and flawless events too. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You've probably learned a lot over the years.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Nice, yeah. That's helpful that you've had so much experience and you've learned what works and what doesn't work.
Right.
And give recommendations, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I hate to say this, but we've definitely fixed some disasters. One time we had this wedding we were doing, and the draping company came in and couldn't get the pole to stand up, and so I had to basically MacGyver out of a floral, like an orchid stick, which is nothing but a wood dowel rod that's pretty thin, and then take some of our floral wire, wrap it around, and then make basically a pin to stick into the pipe to get it to hold up.
Oh my!
And that was their entire ceremony backdrop. We had hanging crystals and glass bubbles off of it. So yeah, little crazy things happen behind the scene that you're like, hey, I now know how to fix that.
You're a handy person to have around during the wedding setup.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That's where the experience and all the years come in. You've had all sorts of things happen, and that's how you get everything fixed.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, diving right into all the questions and everything, how far in advance does someone need to book their florist?
I think that's honestly all over the place. It really just depends on if you love a certain vendor, you can't book that vendor fast enough. Just because you want to make sure you get that date, a lot of people do sell out. So you're basically guaranteeing that you have that date with them. But that's not to say we have people, literally, I had an inquiry today for a wedding next Saturday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it really comes down to availability. Now, this last minute does get pretty crazy. It's usually not a big wedding when it's something like that. I have had 300-person weddings book a couple of weeks in advance, but it gets kind of stressful behind the scenes as far as like hashing out details, making sure your floral order can go in, getting in payments and things like that, just because normally a florist will want you to pay in full before you can get the flower order to go in. So then you're like, you add a lot more stress the longer you wait. So if you do it in advance, you're good. We've had people as far as 2 years book out.
Oh, nice.
The more elaborate the wedding is, you want to give it a little more time, but then I'd probably say most people are 6 months to a year. Okay. Especially if you're in busy season, like spring or fall, you're going to want to go earlier to make sure you've got the date. But sometimes when you're that far in advance, you're not familiar with other florals. So you want to make sure, usually floral is a little further down the line. Like you'll have your venue, you'll have caterer, a lot of times your photographer, you'll kind of know about how many people. You need some of those details when you book floral. That way you can actually plan a design based off of that. So you want to know colors and all of that. You don't just want to say, hey, I booked the venue and now I have floral that I need to focus on. You want some of the details kind of in there, so then we can design based off what's best with your plans and everything you've got going.
Okay.
Focal features, all that.
So speaking of design, what if I was a bride and I came to you and I said, hey, my colors are pink and white. Do I need to know what kind of flowers I want, or do you help me with that? Like, how does the design process work?
So I'd probably say 98% of brides have no clue about flowers. They know a tulip, they know a rose, maybe a daisy or something like that. You basically don't need to be a flower Bible. That's usually what people come to me for, because I basically can hash through different floral varieties, different textures. Like maybe you like something a little more linear, maybe you like something a little more horizontal, kind of garden style, cascading. And I can make recommendations for you based off your style, what you're ultimately trying to achieve design-wise. Okay. And what helps with budget. Like you don't want to say, oh, I want to do something all phalaenopsis orchids, and then you have a smaller size budget. You know, it's ultimately not going to work out. So we'll make recommendations and say, okay, here's what may not be perfect, but here's what works better. And then here's what's going to be flawless with your budget and design-wise and what you're after. So there's all sorts of different ways to approach it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so speaking of budget, what do you have to say about budgets? Like, do brides need $1 million florist budget? Like, what do they need to have in mind?
I think it's kind of all over the place. So we're one of a few florists that don't have a minimum. We do weddings anywhere from $500 to $25,000 plus. It really comes down to how elaborate, what's important to you. I know when you have a planner, planners will kind of outline, say what's important to you. Sometimes it's the DJ, sometimes it's the food, sometimes it's floral. Like we've got brides that come to us and say, floral's the most important thing to me. It's the main element of decor. It brings in a lot of softness, a lot of color sometimes, or pretty neutral. It basically dictates a lot of design elements throughout the wedding. So budgets can be all over the place. There's not really an average, actually.
Good, yeah. So you can pretty much help work with their budget.
It's based off what's priority to you. You have a smaller budget. You know, there are things, there's certain elements of a wedding. You kind of have standardized costs, boutonnieres, corsages, bouquets, things like that. Now, of course, you always have elaborate versions of everything. So there's stuff like that. But there's usually kind of standardized costs within that. Tall pieces cost generally have a starting point. Same thing for low centerpieces. There's candle centerpieces, all that kind of stuff. So there's all averages for individual pieces, but there's not really averages for weddings. If that makes sense.
It does, for sure, yeah. And then so, like you were talking about tall centerpieces, short centerpieces, stuff like that. So we know you do flowers, but what else do you offer? Do you have like stuff that the flowers go in, or like rental items or anything like that?
Yes, a lot of times we have brides who aren't floral lovers and want something a little more clean. So we do candles, we do draping. We can design what we call hard goods centerpieces. So it may be something like a circular candle holder, brings in some sort of element to design for the wedding. At Hidden Creek, we've done draping before. There's just all sorts of different things. We have lots of pedestals. So like if you wanted acrylic pedestals lining your aisle and then candles on top of that, you could definitely do that. We have that sort of stuff. If there's bigger features, sometimes if you have particular shape arches, which you don't really need that at Hidden Creek, but let's just say you want to put something like that behind your cake. Yeah. You can do stuff like that, and we will work with a rental company, or we will recommend a rental company, and then we work really closely. We have a few that we work hand in hand, so basically we don't have to store all of it.
That's nice, yeah. That's really nice that you can get those kinds of things through y'all instead of it just being flowers, and then I have to go somewhere else for candles and somewhere else for the draping. Like, you're kind of, all the decor, it's nice to come to one person.
Right. It's usually pretty easy. A lot of times we can help you pick out linens, things like that too, but it's really nice having a relationship with rental companies, because we say, okay, we know what you're getting from here, or here's what we recommend to get from this company based off your style, and then it makes things less complicated that way.
For sure, yeah. So. And then y'all have been to Hidden Creek 20 million times throughout the years, like all the time. So what is some of like your favorite stuff that you've seen done at Hidden Creek?
I love focal features. Like sometimes centerpieces aren't my favorite thing to do, like depending on budget. If you have a lower, smaller budget, I'd pick just pretty simple centerpieces, honestly, and then go with focal features, like focus on your staircase. We did one wedding there where we had a hanging floral chandelier over the cake. I thought that was a really cool element. It's just something different. When we design, I usually try to be different. It's your wedding. You want to be personalized. So we just try to keep that in mind, how to make you different or make you special, and just make it really beautiful. But I do also, Hidden Creek has outrageously tall ceilings. So I think it's beautiful to have something like tall centerpieces in there. You don't see that. Like we usually have done low features with staircase installations and things like that, but tall is really beautiful in there. I know we have done that before. A head table always makes a statement. And then one of the most recent things we've done with your new, I guess we'll call it a chandelier, right?
The hanging lattice.
Yes, there we go. We've hung floral off of that, floral and greenery. It's seriously one of my favorite. It's a great way to not necessarily have the table be so busy, but you still bring in this softness element with a hanging feature, and then it just makes beautiful photos. It feels really special.
That was so pretty. Yeah. Oh my gosh, it was to die for. Yeah. What is like your personal favorite florist style? Like, do you have something that you just love to do?
I don't actually, just because I'm a creative. So with us, I kind of pride us on versatility. We can do everything from rounded and traditional with no greenery or minimal greenery to you have this huge organic style and there's greenery and garden everywhere. And then we've got sleek, sophisticated, kind of sexy weddings, you know, that the lines are a little bit cleaner. So I love being able to play in different styles and making everything look unique.
That's nice that you like all of it, because then I feel like everyone's going to get the same level of service instead of you being like, oh, these are my favorite weddings, and focusing on those. You have the same passion for everybody, which is really nice.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I mean, not funny in a bad way, but there are florists who have like their style and people go to them for their style. But I like having, you know, the creative factor behind it and making everybody look different and saying, okay, well, you're different, or your wedding is different than Paige's wedding, something like that. So it just feels really special, kind of adds to that element of basically making a statement on who you are as a couple.
So I know this answer is going to be a little bit different depending on how much stuff they get from y'all, but what is the average like setup time before the wedding and breakdown time after the wedding?
So setup is kind of all over the place. Again, that depends on how elaborate it is. Setup usually takes a lot longer. Well, not a lot longer, but longer than tear down for sure. Tear downs normally can get accomplished in under an hour.
Okay.
And then setups, we actually have a final details form. So we send you a form about 30 days out, 30 to 45 days out. We'll kind of ask what time your photos start, what time your ceremony starts, go over all those details. And then we basically plan based off that. We're not going to show up at 4:30 if you've got photos at 2 o'clock. We'll show up at 2 o'clock and make sure you have your bouquets if you need them. Like if the photographer is coming at 2 o'clock and you're still doing makeup, you're obviously not going to get out of the makeup chair and go for that. So we kind of check through all of that. But setup will normally just take a couple of hours. It, again, depends on how complicated the installation is. But we also normally don't come super early in the morning. Like, let's just say your ceremony's at 6 o'clock. We're not going to typically show up at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning because we don't want your flowers out of refrigeration that long.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Unless it's cold. If it's cold, you're good. But summertime in Texas, they're going to go downhill fast like people do.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yes, that Texas heat. And then, so how far in advance do y'all place like the floral order? Like, so when do they need to have their final details done with you by?
So, as I mentioned, we send a form out 30 to 45 days in advance. We can go anywhere from 30 to 15 days for floral order. The way floral ordering works is the sooner you have your order in, basically kind of puts you ahead of other florists, other brides, other people ordering floral basically in the entire world. So let's say a farm has 150,000 roses. Well, they typically don't have that many at one time, but let's just say 10,000 roses. Well, that's for the entire world for that week, or maybe the next week too. But basically, the sooner your floral order gets turned in or confirmed, then we send it in, and then you basically get in line ahead of anybody else who may need the same blush pink rose, or may need the same purple dahlia, that kind of thing. If there's limited quantities, then you basically want to get your floral order in as soon as possible to get ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
It basically kind of is a little more insurance that you're going to get what you actually wanted and asked for. But when you don't, we're great at picking out subs. I mean, it does happen. It happens behind the scenes. I don't want to say all the time, but often enough. And so that becomes an issue. Not really an issue, but I guess a topic of trust with your vendors, and knowing that you have a great relationship with your vendor and they're going to pick the best thing for you based off what's available and based off your style.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And then I'm going to throw a little curveball question at you. But is there a specific trend that you see coming up, like for 2021, that you think is really nice? Like a special color or like style or anything like that?
I haven't seen a whole lot as far as what anticipation for color is going to be. We've had a lot of people kind of come back and starting to move away from greenery unless it's on big focal features. Smaller bridal bouquets, and then no greenery, but still a lot of movement. So it's almost like you still have the garden style, but then you don't have any greenery in it. So there's a lot of texture, a lot of interest going on. Still the same floral, You just take away the greenery element so it shows off flowers a little bit better.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. And then y'all can always go to her website. What is it?
It's www.hautefloral.com. Everybody thinks I'm saying Hope, but it's Haute, Haute, floral.com.
Yeah, and you can see some displays of what she has done, all the beautiful artwork there, and all the beautiful flowers that they've done at Hidden Creek, and I'll post some pictures for y'all to look at as well. Thank you so much for talking with us and helping answer all of our floral questions today.
Yes.
Thank y'all so much for watching.
Thank
Have a good
you.
one.